Hey guys, Ryan here. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the best sniper supports for Caldera. In case you didn't know, there's actually a health difference on Rebirth compared to Caldera, and that's why you want to use different guns. On top of that though, you're often going to have more engagements in the mid-range on Caldera than compared to Rebirth, and that's a major factor. Anyways guys, I hope you enjoy this video. If you do, you guys don't have to you don't have to subscribe. I just want to say thank you for watching this video, and let's get into it. So the first two guns we're going to talk about are going to be the Cold War AK and the Vargo 52 from Cold War. The builds for these guns are going to be in the background, so if you want to see them, you can just pause the video and get them from there. The reason I'm going to talk about these guns first isn't because I necessarily think they're outright the best, but it's because overall they fill the role of the sniper support perfectly. In orange on this time to kill chart, that's going to be the Cold War AK, and the green is going to be the Vargo. And so you can see the Cold War AK just does kill outright faster, and the Vargo has better damage in the mid-range. The key thing to focus on here is going to be this. The Vargo is a lot easier to control than the Cold War AK, and it has a higher rate of fire, so that means you can in theory miss more shots, and it's not going to drastically lower the time to kill. Both of these guns are excellent picks, and they're pretty much on par with the next two guns I'm about to talk about. And these two guns are going to be the Cooper Carbine and the XM4 from Cold War. Now, the Cooper Carbine is going to be the one I'm going to outright recommend the most for most people on this list. The reason for this is because it has amazing damage in the mid-range, it has amazing damage up close, and it's the easiest to control. However, I have to put this little caveat in, is I'm not sure it's the best sniper support for aggressive players. I think it's the best sniper support for conservative players, and I do think that the XM4 and Cold War AK and Vargo are kind of on par and just as good as the Cooper Carbine, and it kind of comes down to personal preference. But overall, I think the vast majority of players are going to enjoy the Cooper the most. If you are a more conservative player, I would really recommend choosing one of these first four options, and I kind of base it off of personal preference. Whatever ones you have leveled up, whatever ones you're more comfortable with between the Cooper, the XM4, the Vargo, and the Cold War AK, that's the one I would use if you're a more conservative player. And this is going to lead me into my next two guns, the LAPA and the Owen Gun. And the reason why this led me here is because these are for more aggressive players. On the LAPA, you can switch the extended barrel for a rifled barrel, and on this Owen Gun build, you can change the Kurt 60 rounds for the 72 Garanko rounds, and you can even add some attachments to help with the recoil. I also want to take this time to quickly apologize for the lack of gameplay on all of these different guns and the lack of exciting gameplay in general in this video. That's not usually how I do it. It's just because the way my computer's been acting recently, and I would get that all solved soon. Having said that, let's get back to the Owen Gun and the LAPA. The reason these guns are better for more aggressive players is because they excel between 0 and 10 meters in comparison to the other sniper supports. They have better ADS speeds, better sprint to fire times, and just better mobility overall, and that's what makes them so good between 0 and 10 meters. However, their weakness and why they're not as good in conservative players' hands is because they're not that good in the mid-range. They're okay in the mid-range and better than a lot of other close-range SMGs, but they aren't going to be as good as the likes of the Cooper Carbine and the Cold War AK, and that's where you have to find the right sniper support for you. Now, these next two are both going to be guns from Modern Warfare, and they're going to be the CX9 and the Ram 7. The CX9 is going to be more for aggressive players, and the Ram 7 is going to be more for conservative players, and I think both are actually really good right now. The CX9 is a personal favorite of mine because it has really good damage in the mid-range, it has really good damage up close, and it just has amazing hip fire. The only real downside is it's not really too mobile at the end of the day, but it is more than mobile enough for almost anyone to really use effectively, and it's just one of my favorite guns to use right now. As for the Ram 7, it really excels in the mid-range, and that's why it's such a good gun. It can kill pretty decently fast up close, and that's what also makes it a good sniper support, but the real benefit is using it in the mid-range. It's pretty similar to the Cooper Carbine, the XM4, all of those, where if you can get people to be in the mid-range and you can really get those gunfights to be in your favor, you're going to come out on top the vast majority of the time. However, if people get really close and they can utilize their better mobility that you probably don't have with the Ram 7, that can be an issue. Vice versa, when you're using the CX9 and you're facing someone who's about 20 meters away, you're probably going to be at a disadvantage compared to something like the Ram 7, and that's the trade-offs of all these sniper supports and why there's so many good options right now. And speaking of more good options, this is going to bring me to my next two, the Bullfrog and the Milano. I think the Bullfrog and the Milano are really good right now. Now, I've been saying that about a lot of these guns, and that's because I genuinely think all of them are viable and usable, and it's just going to really depend on you as a player. The Bullfrog and the Milano really kind of excel with their mobility and their damage in the mid-range and their ease of use. Both of these guns are pretty easy to use and have pretty low recoil compared to some of the other options like the Owen Gun, and that's what makes them so good in the mid-range. Their damage is okay, it's not great, but it is more than competitive enough, and they also have really good mobility. If you are kind of struggling with a lot of the other options, I would try the Milano. The damage is pretty bad when you really compare it to a lot of the other guns, but it is so easy to hit your shots with that I think a lot of people are going to end up enjoying it. The other thing I will say with these two is you could even fit in guns like the Mac 10 and the Cold War PPSH here, and I think they'd just be as equally viable. I'm not going to make my own section for the Mac 10 and PPSH from Cold War, but if you are a fan of those guns, do consider using them. So now, rounding out this list, we're going to have the Volks and the AS44. Now, these guns exist on opposite side of the spectrum. The Volks is really easy to use, and the AS44 has really insane recoil, but if you can master the recoil, you're going to have one of the best guns in the entire game. The Volks, guys, this thing is being slept on, and I mean it. The specialty of this gun is its outright ridiculous strafe speed, and you are just going to feel like you're zooming when you use this thing. But not only that, it has pretty low recoil and is pretty good in the mid-range. The AS44 is kind of the opposite. It's not too mobile, it has pretty ridiculous recoil, but it has an insanely fast time to kill, and you're just going to melt people with that gun. It's really hard to use, but if you can get used to the recoil, and if you're someone who can use it, you're going to be rewarded for using it. It's one of those guns where it's kind of tough because it takes time to learn, but it is worth learning it. The only issue is as a sniper support, it's pretty average in the mid-range because of the ridiculous recoil. There's a lot of guns, guys, I wasn't really able to get to in this video, and that sucks. I really want to talk about a lot more guns, and I only ended up talking about 12 in this video, and that is a shame because there's a lot more meta options than that. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you do consider leaving a like, do consider subscribing, because I am getting super close to getting monetized, and it really does help out a small channel like mine. I just want to say thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you have a good day. It's been Ryan. Peace.